The largest wildfire in the history of Washington continues to rip through the state today, growing to over 250,000 acres or nearly 400 square miles. Yesterday evening, officials estimated only 16% had been contained. The National Weather Service warned today of the next threat to Washington residents: flash floods. It takes a little as 10 minutes for heavy rain to trigger a flood on a slope that has become unstable from wildfires. This comes just months after flooding caused a mudslide in Osso, Washington that claimed 43 lives. In a fundraising visit to Seattle yesterday, President Obama announced an emergency declaration for certain parts of the state, but he was also blunt about the root cause of the devastation. What is clear is the trend lines indicate the potential for increased forest fires, the president said. And a lot of that has to do with drought. A lot of it has to do with changing precipitation patterns. And a lot of that has to do with climate change. Not holding back at all there from President Obama. Joining me now is founding editor of Climate Progress and chief science advisor for the Emmy-nominated TV series Years of Living Dangerously, Joe Rome, and executive director of the Sierra Club, Michael Brune. And Michael, I will start with you. How significant was it for President Obama to say that yesterday and really sort of draw a line in the sand, explicitly mentioning what so many people know, backed by science?
Yeah, well, it was very significant. But first, let me just say that the thoughts of the Sierra Club and the people are with the people who are being affected by these fires. I was in Washington last week, and the smoke is so thick that you can practically taste it. You know, the reason why what the president said is so important is because this is the new normal. All of these extreme weather events, the fires, the floods, the droughts, are what we can almost come to expect now, not just in Washington, but all across the country. And what the president is trying to do here is he's trying to be very clear about what he's intending to do with the Clean Power Plan, his plan to cut carbon pollution from power plants, and separate himself from usually a lot of Republicans in Congress who are refusing to take any action.
Joe, I want to ask you, why has 2014 been so bad? And I was out on assignment in Los Angeles for NBC over the last year, and it didn't rain for 2 months, which is a very odd thing to be a part of. Why has it gotten so bad in the last 2 years? A lot of people felt that. A lot of people who had been living there for a long time said, this is strange, not seeing a drop of rain for 2 months.
Well, there's this big weather front stuck off the coast of California and all the way up Canada, which has been redirecting weather. So it's been keeping the rain away from California, and it's been going up to Alaska and then coming down and bringing us some cooler weather.
Right.
So even though May and June were the hottest on record worldwide, the East Coast was a little cool, but the West Coast was very hot. And there are some scientists who believe that is actually connected to climate change. It's connected to the loss of Arctic ice, which has changed the direction of the jet stream. Because normally the jet stream is driven by the hot in the south and the cold in the north. But if the north gets less cold because it's got all this exposed water, that weakens the jet stream, and weather patterns can get stuck more often.
And Michael, I want to go back to you. Is this something of an issue where we're starting to see the American citizenry sort of reach a position that is further from where the politicians who oppose this are? If you look at a lot of if you look at this recent Stanford poll, 73% of Americans believe climate change is happening. You presume that of those 73%, a bunch of them are conservative and have voted Republican. Why is the Republican Party so slow to move in this direction? David Cameron and the conservative wing in the UK have already embraced climate change and realized that it's a possibility.
Yeah. Well, first, you know, the Sierra Club has chapters in every state, and I talk to our members in Oklahoma and Kansas, as well as on both coasts in the northern part of the country and in the south, and we're finding everybody is talking about how the weather is changing. Climate is changing, in some places pretty quickly, in some places more slowly. We also have members who are very progressive, others who are very conservative, but they know that things are changing. I think that what's happening, the good news here is that there is a lot of change happening at the grassroots. The thing that a lot of folks don't know about is that most of the clean energy that's installed in the United States is installed in red districts, Republican districts. More than 70% of all of the wind power that's installed in the U.S. is in Republican districts. So I think the Republican Party is going to have to change on this. The only question is whether it takes 2 months or 2 years or 2 more decades before they follow the science and get engaged.
And Joe, I think now more than ever, you do feel the ramifications of climate change, whether it's something as mundane as people out in Southern California getting fined for how much they water their lawn, or whether or not you just realize it's a lot hotter out there than it used to be. It's not just anecdotal, it's actually felt and it's backed up by the science. Do you think we have reached that tipping point in 2014, or are we still a few years away where it's pretty much an accepted thing that this is happening and we must adapt to survive?
Well, I think there's definitely been a quantum change driven by the extreme weather. For some, it was Hurricane Sandy and the staggering storm surge. I mean, I think people need to experience it. And unfortunately, a lot of people are experiencing it in different ways, whether it's the heat causing drought, or whether it is the higher sea levels making the storm surge worse, or whether it's the warm air carrying more moisture, causing more deluges. So absolutely, I think people are starting to notice it, and I think you're seeing the shift, and I think the president's remarks reflect that there is this change in perception.
And we'll see if it spurs action. Probably not in these midterm elections, though. Joe Rome, Michael Brune, thank you so much for joining us on this important issue. We appreciate it.